Well, good evening and welcome to another presentation by the Hallelujah Diet. This is Paul Malkmus, president of Hallelujah Diet, and it's a real privilege to have you with us here this evening. We're excited this evening as we talk about the juicer study that Dr. Donaldson completed a short time ago, and it's really important for us to understand, how these juicers work and which ones give us the best quality, and I know Dr. Donaldson has a lot of great information for us. But before we get started with that, we have a couple of special guests here at the health retreat with Ann and me this week, and we have Reverend Malkmus with us.
Hi, this is George Malkmus, founder of Holly Acres. I'm 86 years old now, been on the Holly Diet for 43 years. My dad died at age 65, my mom at 66. I've outlived him by over 20 years. It sure is wonderful, and I'm having a wonderful time here at Paul and Ann's Health Retreat in Georgia. What a beautiful, beautiful place. We've been having a wonderful time. They've been treating us like kings and queens. And it's so good to be able to say hi to you.
And we have another special guest, and that's Miss Rhonda Malkmus.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's so good to be with you for just a moment. Thank you for giving us the privilege that we have to be here with you. And I just want to say that if you have a chance to come and visit with Paul and Ann at their retreat, you really need to do it. It's a life-changing experience. Ann just has wonderful food for you to eat, and their place is marvelous. I can't recommend it highly enough that if I was in any condition or even a healthy person, I'd want to spend a week to 10 days with Paul and Ann. So don't forget to make a reservation to come to Georgia. You'll never regret it. Thank you.
So I'm going to have to pay you now for that plug, aren't I? But it really has been a privilege to have them with us. It's actually been 10 days, and it's been a real exciting time. We were noting the other day that we had to spend that much time together since I was actually in high school. So it's been real pleasure. So okay, back to the presentation at hand. Sorry about that, Michael, for stealing a few of your moments. But before we get started, though, why don't we just open in a word of prayer? Dear Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity and pray that the webinar goes well tonight, that you give Michael the words to say, and we sure appreciate all the effort that he's put into pulling this data together as well as the other research that he does. Pray that you'll just bless his time this evening and that we honor you through it all. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, if you have any questions or concerns as we're going through the presentation, feel free to just put something in the chat window there, and we'll save up the questions until the end unless Dr. Donaldson sees something that he feels we should address as we're going through it. And so Dr. Donaldson's been with us since, 1998? He's our research director, and he's really the science behind the Hallelujah Diet. He's conducted a number of different studies, written all sorts of published papers, and it's just a real privilege to have him with us. He's a chemical engineer graduate from Cornell University. And Michael, it's just great to have you with us this evening.
Well, it's great to be here, Paul. I don't mind sharing a few moments with George and Rhonda at all. That was really special.
Yeah, we felt the same way. It's been too long since we've actually been together like that.
And as founders, George and Rhonda founded this, and that's why we're even here talking about this, about juicers and things like that, because of the efforts they put in many years ago and going on from there. So I've done an updated version kind of a juicer study that we did back in about 1999, I think, 2000, somewhere in there. And juices have changed a little bit. Some things have changed. Some things are still the same. This is a bit more complete. But before we get into the juicer comparison, we want to just look a little bit about why we should juice in the first place. Because most people growing up, they don't think of turning vegetables into juice. It's just not something that they're taught in school. And their parents didn't teach them, so it's our job to teach you. So why should we juice? And the first reason is that you can eat more vegetables. And it's one of the easiest ways to absorb things from your vegetables as well. There's a lot of vegetables you juice, like carrots, would have a lot of carotenoids in them, and they're related to inflammation. The more carotenoids you have, the less inflammation you have in your body. And juicing vegetables is really the best way to increase plasma carotenoids. It's the best way to get a lot of other nutrients into your body as well. A lot of the minerals, vitamins, phytonutrients, they're in the liquid of the juice itself. The fibers there is a broom to kind of move things along, but a lot of conditions go a lot better if you get more vegetables into your system. If you're trying to get 3 pounds a day, you can get a pound pretty easily just in the form of juice, a pound or two, along with salads and blended salads and things. So you can increase the intake of vegetables in a way that's easy to absorb them. Now in 2012, we did a study with 67 health ministers at a meeting that we had, and we looked at C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation, and then also at plasma total carotenoid. So it's a marker of vegetable intake, juice intake, things like that, that had carotenoids in them. And so you see it in this graph here, there's a relationship between those. As carotenoid levels go up, inflammation tends to go down. Now it's not a perfect correlation there, but that's the trend there. And we found in this data that the people that had the lowest levels of C-reactive protein and the highest level of carotenoids were those people who were already juicing. So it bears out that juicing really is the best way to get more of the good stuff from your vegetable. So that's why you want to juice. Now, before we compare juices, we need to look at the juicing process and think of this a little bit like an engineer. You start with produce, and inside that produce, all the liquid, all the water, the moisture that's carrying all the good nutrients are inside the cells. You have to rupture those cells open and squeeze them out to make the juice. So there's 2 stages here. The first stage is the grinding stage. And here's where you want to grind and open up all those cells, rupture them open. If you don't rupture those completely, you leave moisture inside the produce as well. And that goes out into the pulp over on the right side, and it will feel dry because you can't feel that moisture because it's still inside the cells. From the grinding stage, you go to a pressing stage, and every juicer has these stages in there. There's a grinding part and a pressing part, and some do one part better than the other part, and we'll get into more of that later here. In the pressing stage, that's where you're pressing that moisture that was released from the cells, and you're putting it into your juice container. If you don't press it very hard, some of that moisture goes out into the pulp, and it feels rather wet. You're trying to grind it well and press it well, and that's how you make good juice. So with that in mind, we looked at 6 different juicers here, and I'll show you a picture of those 6 juicers in a moment here. But we looked at carrots, apples, celery, spinach. Spinach is our, example of a leafy green vegetable. Others will be similar to that. Celery is a hard vegetable, pretty watery. Apples, kind of a fruit example, a hard fruit, not too hard to do. But, apples vary quite a bit. Up in Washington State, they're nice and crisp if you get them in the right place. Some other places, they're not so crisp, and it doesn't work quite as well. We use crisp ones in this study. And the combination juice. So when you're evaluating this, we looked at yield and enzymes. For yield, you weigh out a kilogram of prepared produce, you juice it, and then you weigh the juice, and that gives you your yield right there. It's very simple. You can do this at home. Just get a digital scale, weigh out a kilogram of produce for your juicer you're using, and weigh the produce, make sure you have a kilogram, and then weigh the juice when you're all done, and you can figure out your yield, and you can compare what you got at home with what we're getting right here. And then I measured enzymes as well, 5 or 6 different enzymes, depending on what was present in the produce there. And I did each test 4 times, so there's repetition as well, so you get some good statistics, and you can test whether something's really different from one of the other ones here. So it wasn't just kind of off the cuff, squeeze the juice with the hand and see which one seems better, and kind of eye level. This is a real scientific study here. So these are the juices. There's the Jack LaLanne Power Juicer. That's a centrifugal juicer, spins really fast. The Champion Classic Juicer. That's it's been around a long time. It's a solid juicer. The Green Star Elite Juicer, one of the finest ones that they've come out with. There's a New Wave Juicer, the Vertical Auger Juicer, single auger. That grinds pulp through, and it's easy to use. Then there's a Pure Juicer and a Norwalk Juicer, and they look fairly similar. The Pure Juicer was made by a guy that had repaired Norwalks for a long time, and he figured out all the things that were wrong with the Norwalk that they wouldn't change, and he fixed them. So it has an offset feed chute, so it doesn't throw things at the ceiling and things like that. So a refined version, in a sense, of a Norwalk juicer. So those are the 6 juices we looked at here. And we're going to go ahead and look right ahead at the yield of juice. So you have across the top carrot, apple, celery, spinach, and the combination juice. First, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of data here. I'll show you some pictures as well. You can kind of pair one at a time. So carrots, you can see the Green Star and Champion, right, just over 50% yield there. New Wave and the Jack LaLanne juicer, low 40s. Norwalk 56.5%. Pure juicer, depending on the grid you were using, between 65 and 71% yield on those. Apples, the difference wasn't as great there, and quite a bit more juice as well. So anywhere from 71% up to 87% on the juice there. Celery, you can see the differences there. The New Wave and the Jack LaLanne didn't do as well. Across the board, you got the most juice out of the pure juicer. And then the Green Star and the Champion and Norwalk are kind of in a second tier. And the New Wave and the Jack LaLanne juicer were kind of at the bottom as far as yield here. Let's look a little bit one at a time here. Break these out a little bit more into a graphic. Some people like to see numbers. Some people see it better as a graph. So in the carrot juice, here we have the Green Star and the green bar. The gray is the Champion. The darker blue is the New Wave. Jack LaLanne's the gold color. Norwalk is purple, and light blue is the pure juicer. That's consistent through these next 3 slides. So you see there's quite a bit more juice in the pure juicer. Like I said, kind of in the middle. There's no statistical significantly difference between the Champion, the Green Star, and the Norwalk juicer. That's what that little subscript A means across there for each of those. Those are in the same class there. The B, C, and D are different from each other and different from the A. Apple juice, there's a little bit difference there. Small differences, but you can see the differences. You can see where your juicer would lie in the middle of that. The combination juice, this is 50% carrot, along with the spinach and the celery and some lemon juice in there. So again, the Champion and the Green Star, very similar to each other. Norwalk is a little bit higher, and the pure juice is a little bit higher yet. And down around 50% is the Jack LaLanne juicer and the New Wave juice. In the spinach juice, I added a little bar there with the light green there for the foam. So you can see, well, if you ate all that foam or drank the foam or did something with the foam, that's how much would be there. I don't really do much with that foam myself. If you wait a little while, some of it turns into juice. But you can see there, these juicers, the Green Star, the Champion, and New Wave, produce a fair amount of foam as well in there. Two-stage juicer doesn't really produce any foam in the process. The grinder and the bag eliminate the foam in that process. So then, in the celery juice, again, a little bit of foam there. The differences aren't as large there. Generally around 80%. You can count on about 80%, a little bit more juice, unless you're using a centrifugal juicer. So those are the yield numbers there. If we want to look at those in practical numbers, well, how much more juice is that? If I take a pound of peeled carrots and I put them through the juicer, how much juice am I going to get? And we've typically told people you expect about 8 ounces of juice out of your carrots. So with the Green Star and the Champion, a little bit more than 8 ounces, 8.4, 8.7 ounces for those two. The New Wave, the LaLanne juicer, around 7 ounces of juice, so not as good. Norwalk, you're going to get 9 ounces. Pure juicer, 11.5 ounces of juice there from your pound of carrots. And a blender and press combination, which we'll talk about later, gives you even more there. In the combination juice in the next column there, you're going to get more juice. This is more watery because it has a celery in there. So you're going to get more juice. The comparisons are similar. You're going to get more juice out of the pure juicer and not as much out of the New Wave and the LaLanne juicer. Again, about half. But of a Green Star or Champion, you're going to get about 10 ounces of juice out of your pound of produce there. If I took 5 pounds of carrots, how many 8-ounce glasses could I make of that? Now, so I buy a bag of 5-pound carrots, so I have a 25-pound bag of carrots, and I take 5 pounds of that. If I cut the tops and the ends off and I peel them, I'm going to lose about 15%. I was kind of surprised it was that much, but I've done it several times, and it always comes out to about 15% when I peel them there, cut the tops off. So when you take that loss into account, you're going to get about 4.5 8-ounce jars from your Green Star Elite or your Champion juice. Norwalk juicer 4.8 jars, less with the New Wave and the Lane juicer. You're going to get 6 jars out of the Pure juicer. And the combination, you can get 7 jars out. So you get more juice. You can have an idea for comparison there. Green Star and the Champion, very similar amounts of juice there. The yields aren't very different there. There might be an auger, single auger juicer that works a little better, but the yields are generally a little bit lower for the single auger juicers across the board there. So that's what we get for yield. Let's talk a little bit about enzyme measurement. That's the yield, but we want to know about the quality of juice. We don't want to know about, we slammed it and we got a whole bunch of juice, but it's no good. We want to know about the quality of juice too. Well, how do you measure quality of juice? You can measure enzymes, you can measure vitamins, you can measure minerals, you can measure fancy phytochemical. But it turns out the enzymes are important to measure because they're very sensitive to heat and oxidation. They're associated with the vitality, the life force that's in a food, in a piece of produce here. When the enzymes are gone, the life force is gone. So very, very associated with it. Maybe exactly the same thing. Certainly it's associated with it. And they're very sensitive to heat. So if I change the process just a little bit, add just a little bit more heat in the process, I can measure that difference with enzymes. And I don't want to use just one enzyme because that might give me a skewed view of reality. I want a composite view. So I use 6 different enzymes to get an idea of, well, this one changes a lot, but this one doesn't change very much. So it kind of balances out the different enzymes when I measure all 6 of them together. So when we measure enzymes, well, there's a whole lot of information on this graph. So we'll go through it slowly here. This is the average enzyme activity in carrot juice from all 6 juicers here across 4 different days, days 0, 1, 2, and 3. So you can see each juicer is listed in the bars down below. And here, you take the activity of each juicer and then compare it to the Norwalk juicer at day 0. And set that at 100%, so everything is relative to the Norwalk juicer at day 0. So if it has the same enzyme activity, it would come out as 100%. Like a Green Star you see, the first bar, that's about 100%. A little bit higher in the Champion, it's about 109% actually. New Wave is right around 100%. Jack LaLanne's, that's mid-80s. And I think the Norwalk and the Pure Juice are a bit higher than 100% there. Well, Norwalk is 100%, and then Pure is a little bit higher than that. So what you see here in the beginning, day 0, because of differences in different batches of carrots, there's actually no difference in between the juicers on day 0 in the enzyme activity. The average enzyme activity is basically the same. So what looks a little bit lower in the Lane juicer, the average varies more. That error bar is larger there. So when you do the statistical analysis, it actually is not different there. On day 0, what this means is that on day 0, the juice that you get out of any of these juicers, enzyme-wise, is pretty close to the same. So that's encouraging. You can use any of these juicers with confidence knowing that you're getting quality juice. When you store them, you can see it drops down in all of them. This drops down a little bit. It doesn't go that far. If you throw out the Lane juicer in that one there, still it averages above 90% even after 3 days. The average enzyme activity is still around a little above 90% for all juicers except for the Lane juice. So that's encouraging. You're not going to lose very much enzymes in carrot juice while you store it either. So that's good to know. I think we all like to know that information well because when you make a couple quarts at a time, you want to know, well, I don't want to drink it all now. I want to drink some of it tomorrow. Is it still worth something? The answer is yes. It's better fresh, but it's still good tomorrow and the day after, and for carrot juice, even the day after that. So it's good to know. We look at apple juice. There's something very curious going on here. The pure juicer and the Norwalk juicer have like 2.5 to 3 times less enzymes in them compared to the other juicer. And what's going on here is that the bags that are used in these presses are fine enough that they're clarifying the juice more than the other juicer. So it's more of a cloudy juice that you find in the other juicers. When you have the two-stage juicer, that juice is more clarified. It's clear. You can see through it better. And a lot of the enzyme activity is associated with that soluble fiber. When I spin that soluble fiber out of this juice, out of the Green Star juicer, and then test it again, it goes down to the level that you see in the pure and the Norwalk juicer. So you want that cloudy juice, actually. You don't want to get rid of all that soluble fiber in there. You want to let that pass through. So that's the one place where I saw negative aspect of using the bags there, or the juicing cloth. In spinach juice, across the board, it was all pretty good. This is just on the first day. I didn't measure for 3 days for spinach juice. On the first day, there's no statistically significant difference between the juices here, all across. And you can see the numbers between 109 at the high down to 89 at the low level. But there's variation. And some of that variation, that you see those error bars are fairly large there, across there. The reason for that is because I don't do all the juicing with one batch of produce here. I buy a batch of produce this week, test them all, get another batch of produce, test that again, and a third day, test it again. And there's variations from bag to bag of spinach. In fact, there's more variation between bag to bag of spinach than there is sometimes between the different juicers themselves. So that's good to know. You're worried about getting the last little bit out of your juicer. Well, you may want to spend more time getting the best quality produce you can, and not worry so much about which juicer you're using. So keep that in mind as well. If we look at celery, again, you see some of the same kind of variation, but the enzyme activity, I think the new wave is lower there at about 83%, but the other ones are all above 90% there. So, it's good juice all the way across, except for, exception here, the lane juicer at times, or the Norwalk, the new wave juice. So this is a picture of the combination juice. And again, day 0, 1, and 2 did multi-day testing on this. The first day, there is some variation in this. The letter C across some of the tops of those for the Champion, the Norwalk, and the Pure Juicer, as well as the Green Star. Those are all about the same level there on the first day. Again, day 0, Norwalk is set at 100% there, and everything is relative to that level there. So for the combination juice, the new wave and the lane juicer, enzyme-wise, they're not performing as well. That's under 60% of what you'd find up here, initially here. After the first day, enzyme levels drop a fair bit in all of them. Not as much. Let's look at the table here on the next slide. You can see day 0, day 1, day 2, enzyme activities in the combination juice for all 6 juicers here. And then the change in the percent across there. So the Green Star Elite dropped 27%, Champion dropped 16%, about 20% for the New Wave juicer, 13% for the Lane juicer, 37% for the Norwalk juicer, and 30% for the Pure juicer in change. So the Champion juicer actually held out really well. Say, well, the Lane juicer held out really well too, but it started so low that it's still low on day 2. The Champion juicer had good enzyme activity on day 0, and it retained it very well. In fact, it retained it just as well, or in some ways, you say, well, it actually did better than the Green Star Elite juicer for this combination juice across 2 days of storage here. So you might be surprised by that, because the Green Star is the one that stores the juice the best. So I want to get the best juicer to store the juice that stores the juice the best. Well, maybe the bioceramics and the magnets in there make a difference. I couldn't really pull that difference out in the testing that I was doing. Even with sensitive enzyme activities, I couldn't see a difference in it. You have to measure something else to see the difference in it. The difference that the magnets and the bioceramics make in the Green Star Elite. So, as an aside here, we asked the question, which kind of produce has the most enzymes? Because I was testing enzymes in all these different produce. And I would have to adjust my assays considerably for the different kinds of produce that were being made. For spinach, I have to do a higher dilution. And for carrots, it was pretty normal. For apples, you couldn't dilute it at all. You had to wait longer for the color to show up in the assay here. And that's because spinach has a lot more enzymes. You look at the acid phosphatase, spinach is 10 times as much as what you find in carrots, and higher than the other ones pretty much as well. Carrots, actually, for alpha-mannosides and the other ones, are fairly similar to the spinach levels, a little bit lower in the N-acetyl-beta-D-glucosamidase, but similar levels there. And beta-glucosidase just isn't detected in carrots. Every time I try it, it's just not there. And celery, it's missing a couple enzymes there as well. It's a fairly watery produce. You wouldn't expect as many enzymes, and it's true, it just doesn't have near as much as what you would find in a leafy green like spinach. And I've tested kale. Kale's way up there with spinach too. I think it's a little bit higher than spinach. So leafy greens have a lot of enzymes in them. Watery produce, not as much. Fruit, and it's a mature fruit sitting there, it doesn't go bad very fast, and it doesn't really have many enzymes in it either. It's got tenfold less of a couple of these compared to the celery. So, carrots do pretty well. Spinach is a great source of enzymes. So that gives you an idea of, where the nutrition is in these things. Then it kind of goes with nutritional density of these different produce things as well. Now, that's the juices that exist on the market. Is there a way to make this juicing process better? Let's look at the juicing process again. Remember, we start with produce, with the moisture inside the cells. If we optimize the first stage, grinding it up, and then pressing it, if we optimize both of those, we would get the most juice and the driest, smallest amount of pulp out of there. So how could we do that? What if we used a blender for the first stage to grind up? Yeah, it has to be a good blender. You can't just use a cheap blender for this. It's going to destroy it, obviously. But if you use a Vitamix or a Blendtec blender, they'll do fine with it. And I've used them both that way, and they both do well. And then put it in a hydraulic press to squeeze it well. Could I optimize the juicing process doing that? Well, here's a picture. Sometimes you can use a picture. It explains things. On the left side of this picture is this combination juice mixture. It's half carrot, 20% celery, 20% spinach, 10% spinach, 20% lemon juice. The lemon's not in there. But this is the carrot and the celery and the spinach. On the right side, that's what comes out of the blender, completely homogenized. Left side, you can see all the parts there. So I'd be hard-pressed to say that's exactly optimized on the left side. So let's look at yield first. Carrot juice, I go from pure juicer. Using the smaller grid, I can get 72%. Remember, with the larger grid, I get about 65%. I can go up to 83% yield with carrots with this process. Now, 83%, that's, on the standard tables, they say carrots only have 88% moisture in them. So I'm only leaving about 5% of the moisture left in that when I squeeze it this way, and I grind it and squeeze it. So I think that's pretty close to optimal amount there. Apple juice, both ways, is statistically significantly different, but in practical terms, it's pretty much a wash there. Same for celery and spinach juice. Spinach juice, it is different. I get 10% more juice using the blender and press method. Celery juice, it's really about the same. Combination juice, since it's half carrot, that difference in how well you grind and press carrots makes a difference. So I can get 81% of my juice out in the Vitamix and the press combination compared to the pure juicer at 72%, the Norwalk at 67%. So it does make a difference. And if you're making a lot of juice, 10% here, 10% there adds up. So the question is, I get more juice out of it, but I probably blew the smithereens out of it by blending it. I probably heated it. Actually, I didn't heat it beyond room temperature for this. But you have potential for mixing in more air, and people say blenders cause oxidation. So we need to look at enzymes as well. Is the juice from the blender press worse than what you get from a pure juice as far as enzyme content? So that's what we're looking at here. Here's carrot juice and combination juice, tested day 0, 1, and 2 for both of these here. And you see the Vitamix compared to the pure juicer here, and then the Norwalk pure juicer and Vitamix for the combination juice. And there's no statistical difference here in the first slide or in the second slide. I mean, there's difference kind of between the first day and second and third, or first and second day compared to the first day for the combination juice. But between the juicing methods, you'd have to say at least the Vitamix press method does at least as well as the regular juicing method. So it's not destroying enzymes at all. In fact, you may be getting some more enzymes out of the process. Same thing with the celery juice. I get a little bit more enzymes out of them compared to the juicer. Apple juice, they're both using the same cloth, but I'm getting more of that soluble fiber out when I grind it more completely with a blender. So again, I'm getting more enzymes with the Vitamix press method, even with apple juice. And also with spinach juice, I get a little bit more enzymes with the blender press method compared with the pure juice. So the answer is, I do get enzymes. The blender is not destroying enzymes in the process. If you heat it enough, you will destroy enzymes, but you have to heat it. And you can tell that with your hand. You can tell. You see steam coming out of your blender, you're blending it too long, okay? That's just too far. Don't do that. So it's a good method. It's an optimal method. That's just, it's out there. Just put it out there. That is a way to optimize it. Not suggesting that everyone ought to do that, but it is a way to optimize both parts. The grinding, you can homogenize it with a blender. You find a way to press it well, you'll get the most juice and it's high quality. So let's rate the grinding pressing performance of these juicers here. They're all laid across the Green Star. If you look at the pulp out of Green Star, it's kind of chunky. It presses it really hard, but the grinding is still kind of chunky. So the inefficiencies in that are in the grinding stage, stage 1. So yield still comes out as a medium yield. If you blend stuff and try to put the Green Star, it doesn't go. Right? It's just a mess. Big mess to clean up, actually. It needs some chunks to pass through the twin-geared auger system. So it can't grind it too fine, or the grinder won't even work. The Champion, stage 1, it grinds it nice and fine, but it doesn't press very hard. That system there it leaves a very wet pulp. You can put it back through and you get a little bit more juice out of it, in fact. So again, it has a medium yield. The New Wave juicer is a single auger. It needs kind of a chunky stuff to pass stuff through. It presses it decently hard, but the yield overall is still low. The Lelaint juice, that centrifugal juicer, it has very fine teeth. It grinds it really nice and fine, but you can hardly call it pressing as it flies past that screen on the way into the catch bowl for all the ground up stuff ends up in one bowl, and the little bit of juice you get ends up in your juice jar. So it really has the lowest yield overall. The Norwalk, it grinds pretty fine. It presses hard, but it's not quite optimal all the way through. The pure juicer, it grinds nice and fine, a little bit better than the Norwalk juicer. And it presses nice and hard, and it gives great yield all the way across. So if it has any efficiency, it would just be in the first stage. There's nothing wrong with the press. You could press it harder, and I don't think you'd really get much more juice out of it. And the blender press, it homogenizes the first stage. It presses hard. You use the pure juicer for the press in this case here, and it just gives you the highest yield. So you can look at that, and you can evaluate your own juicer that you have at home. Feel the pulp there. Is it really nice and fine? Is it really wet? You can feel like, well, where's the inefficiencies in the juices that I have right now? And how would that compare to juicers that we did in this study here? So right now you may be wondering, which juicer should I use, or which juicer should I recommend to someone else as well? So we answer that question here. The pure juicer is the best juicer. If you have to look at in terms of yield, quality of juice, it gets 5 stars. It gives you the most juice and the best juice there. Now, it's a lot of work. It's messy. You don't want to make it for just making 8 ounces of juice. You wouldn't want to do that. You want to make a batch of juice and really go after it. And you can freeze it. It keeps well that way. You can make a weeks worth of juice in one sitting there. The New Wave juicer, really is one of the easiest juicers to use. You can start juicing while you're still preparing your produce. You just start, it basically feeds itself. 15 or 20 minutes, you can get your 16 ounces of juicers done, and you can be on your way there. The Green Star Elite is said to be, really good for greens, that twin auger style like that. But the two-stage juicers actually did better with green. So if you're a dedicated juicer and that's part of your lifestyle, you may want to consider that. Champion juicer has a medium yield, high enzyme content, good quality juice. So I would tend to recommend a Champion juicer for a new user that doesn't have any experience with making juice. That juice is going to taste good. It's not that complicated to use. And it will do a variety of things. If you want to do pure leafy green juice, it's not very good for that. There is an attachment to do that now. But, looking at studies I've done with people tend to mix something else in with their leafy green. Because of that, if you have a mixed produce thing, like the combination juice, the Champion's a solid choice. If you've already worn out a juicer and you're looking to buy another one, and you know that you want to keep on juicing for a long time, then the pure juicer is a solid choice. There's really no reason to go and buy a new Norwalk. The pure juicers, it's been refined, and it's good company. They do good service. They understand the juicers, and they understand how to make a good juicer, and they're still committed to making improvements along the way. So, it costs, you look at a pure juicer and say, well, that's, that costs way more. That's in the range of a Norwalk juicer. How long would it take me to recoup my initial investment? Or if I was, put another way, if I had 18 months, how much juice would I have to make every day to recover my cost? This is the only juicer that you can actually do this and say that it actually will pay for itself. So in 18 months, if you're making 4 liters of carrot juice a day, it'll pay for itself. That difference between buying Champion and Green Star Elite, you'll recover your initial cost, your extra cost of buying that juicer. The combo juice, the yields aren't that much different, so you have to make 5.5 to 6 liters a day of a combination juice to make up the difference. And that's using conventional produce. The prices for that. If you're using organic produce, you want to use a juicer that gets you the most juice. And in that case, if you're really committed to that, then pure juicers, it's a good choice. Taller machine. You have to think of it not as a gadget, but as a kitchen appliance. Same way your refrigerator is a kitchen appliance, or your stove is an appliance. Your juicer could also be an appliance in that. So let's recap just a little bit here. Pure juicer, number 1 for yield and enzyme levels. Champion and Green Star, they're very similar in terms of quality of juice and yield. I probably wouldn't ever choose a centrifugal juicer. I would pick a New Wave even over that if I had to. Produce varies a fair bit in enzyme quality as well, enzyme activity in there. So you have to keep that in mind when you're trying to compare little tiny bits of differences between numbers. There's variation in the produce itself. If you optimize stage 1 and stage 2 in the juicing process, you're going to get the most and the best juice. It's not about how slow you go or how fast the juicer runs. It's really about optimizing the grinding and the pressing. That gives you the best juicing process. So I thank you for your time. I think we have some time for some questions. Some of you may have some questions.
Hey, Michael, thank you so much. That's really great information. And, we've been using the pure juicer here at the health retreat, and we've really enjoyed the quality as well as the yield, but we're often making up to 30 glasses of juice at a time, so it really is beneficial when you're making large amounts. But we do have a good number of questions here, and did you look at bacteria at all with these, and which one would grow bacteria, or do you have any insights as to which one would grow bacteria faster?
I didn't measure that at all in this here. And if I had to guess, it would just depends on the cleanliness of the produce, not on the juicer itself.
Okay.
Although if the bags were dirty, in the 2-step process, you may be able to grow produce you might grow bacteria faster if your bags had bacteria on them.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any sense of which of the juicers are easier to clean?
It seems to me that as you get used to using a juicer, it becomes easier to clean. You get just accustomed to working with them. They all have 5 or 6 parts. So, a pure juicer, a 2-stage juicer, that's obviously more work because you have the cloth too. The rest of it's pretty simple to clean, but it's just those cloths.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Champion's pretty easy to clean. Green Star, that's that little fine screen. I don't care to clean it that much. But it comes with a brush, so you clean it off and keep scrubbing at it. It comes clean. And use some, put the vinegar on it now and then to keep the holes clean. That's one of the things you got to do with those screens like that. A little bit of maintenance on those. But you have to have some kind of screen in there, so you just have to keep that screen clean.
Mm-hmm. One of the little tricks I used with the Green Star was to run water through it when it's on, like over the sink, and it would help to clear out that screen, so it was easier to with the brush, so it didn't take as much effort.
Oh yeah. I do that every time too with that. Just pour another pitcher of water through it and just catch one pitcher out. That does help clean it up.
Yep. The Huron juicer, people are asking how that would compare with your test analysis, if you have any thoughts on it.
It may be a little better than the New Wave juicer. I have done some testing with it, but I don't have the numbers right handy here. But it's similar quality to the New Wave juicer.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of,
is,
someplace close to that.
It's similar.
Mm-hmm. Actually, when I was using the New Wave, I would do my hard vegetables through the New Wave, and then I would do my greens through the Green Star, and then it seemed like, but it was a lot more work doing both of them to get the better yield.
Okay.
And we're using just the household model for the Champion, or was it the commercial?
It's a commercial one.
Commercial one, okay.
But it's the classic, the Champion Classic.
Okay. Your
that stainless steel
homogenized
actually makes a difference. If you use it long enough, if you use that long enough on the household ones, you actually will wear out that shaft a little bit. Actually got to do that.
And it also warms the juice if you use it for very long, right?
It will warm it up. Celery, you have to be careful with that. That does warm it up a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
One trick that I will do is have like a frozen water bottle, and then put that in my container that I'm catching juice into, and just stick that right in there. So as soon as the juice comes through, I'm cooling it right down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The homogenizing with the Vitamix was really pretty neat, especially with carrots. Did you have to do anything, add water or anything to get them started, or how did that work?
No, the carrots actually, you think of carrot being really hard, but Vitamix did really well with those. It does come with the plunger, so I used the plunger a little bit on those. And it, when I used the blend tech, you have to mix it a little bit, but I never added water. You didn't have to add water. If you do carrots and spinach, you have to be careful because that gets really thick. So it does help to have a watery vegetable in there.
Yeah. So if you're doing a lot of like spinach, you would start with your celery or your apple, and if you're doing a combo juice.
Yeah, put that on the bottom. More watery stuff on the bottom. Get that going a little bit, and you can add the other stuff to it.
Okay. Do you think it would be possible to grind in a food processor instead of a Vitamix?
No. You could, but I don't think it would be impressive.
Yeah.
It's still going to be chunky. You just put it through a juicer. A champion juicer would do better than most food processors.
You're right. Yeah, I think it would burn out even a good food processor. Do you have a good source for hydraulic presses that you would recommend if somebody was using the Vitamix?
I'm still working on that.
Okay.
I don't have a good source at this point.
And what do you think about the Omega and Breville juicers in comparison?
The Omega juicer? You mean a single? Was that the single auger one?
I believe they are single, and I think they also have an upright that's similar to the Huron or the New Wave.
Somewhere in between there. Again, if you have one, you can kind of evaluate and feel how the pulp feels. If it feels chunky, it's not grinding as fine as you could, so you're losing some produce. You're losing juice right in the pulp there because it didn't grind it up well.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the pulp feels really wet, you feel okay. It's kind of leaving. It's not squeezing very hard. And if you want to know, you can just weigh out a kilogram of produce, catch the juice, and weigh the juice. And you'll know exactly where you're at. But I couldn't test all of them because this was a very thorough testing. So I had to kind of pick, not so many juicers to do all at once.
Certainly, and
it
takes a lot of. Well, we know this takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to pull all these together. We certainly appreciate it. And one of the viewers says, "Thanks for putting it all together, Michael," and asked what you thought of the TriBest Flow vertical juicer. I mean, it's been a while since I've looked at that one, but I think it's similar to the Huron and New Wave. I don't know if you're more familiar with it.
I haven't seen one except in the video. So
right.
I think it's okay, but it's not optimal still. But if you like it, it's okay. It's gonna make after testing all these juicers, the enzyme quality of all of them was actually pretty good. Except for maybe the centrifugal juicer. I wouldn't rank it up there as really good. But generally, you're making vegetable juice, it's going to be good for you. Can't really go wrong with that. It's the juicer that you don't use that's really not worth having. You have to pick one that you want to use.
That's for sure. We always tell people when they ask what juicer to use the one you have under your counter, bring it up and dust it off and just start juicing.
That's the one right there.
So from juice that would last the longest, and I know you had a slide there that showed that. Is there one that just stood out that this juicer would have the longest lifespan?
No, I think they were fairly similar in terms of which juicer made the juice that lasted the longest. For carrot juice, they're all, except for the centrifugal juicer, you throw that one out. After 3 days, you still had about 90% of the enzymes in there. So, across the board.
Yeah, so if you excluded that one, the rest of them had 90%.
Right.
So what happens to the enzymes when you freeze the juice?
I've done some testing with that. You do lose some, but if you only thaw it out once and drink it, it's fine. I can't give you an exact number on it, but it's probably around 20% loss, which overall is not bad, considering.
Are you familiar with the NAMA, N-A-M-A juicer?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of it either. Actually, 2 people asked about it. And you said that you can't take vegetables out of the Vitamix after you've homogenized it and put it into one of the juicers unless it's a Pure or the Norwalk. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have to put it through a cloth at that point. Press it. I did try. It didn't work. I think not even the Champion. It didn't really. It was actually too fine. And I didn't try the New Wave, but after trying it to the Green Star Elite, the other ones weren't going to work either.
Right. And how long do you think it can safely store juice in the refrigerator, and what would happen like after 7 days?
It would depend on how clean it is. Some people say that they do okay with the vacuum sealing. Some of the bacteria is still gross when it's vacuum sealed, so I would be careful with it. But I've known people that have had good success with that too. But you want clean produce. Don't just scrub your carrots and put it through there and try to keep it for 7 days. I don't think that'll work well.
And
there's an effect
make sure I
on
heard
the surface of a carrot.
Yeah, there's a lot, especially if you don't cut out the cracks.
Exactly.
Did I hear you correctly that you lose 50% of the yield in carrots if you peel the skin and remove the ends?
15.
1.5. Okay.
1.5.
And in the Vitamix press combo, you use the Pure Juicer press. Is that correct?
Correct. Get the most press that way.
Okay. Well, Dr. Donaldson, I think you've done a wonderful job researching and presenting all this. We've had several people show their appreciation and thank you for it in the comments. And it was quite enlightening. It's been a while since I've seen data on the quality of juice, and actually some of this surprised me. So it was good to see that really whatever juicer we're using, drink the juice on the first day and you've got really good quality juice, and it pretty much is the same all the way across. That was pretty neat.
I think I learned some things doing this too. Kind of had some preconceived notions, and they didn't all hold up going through this study.
That's the neat thing about using the data to make our decisions. What were some of the things that surprised you?
Not so much on the yield, but the enzymes. Thought there'd be a bigger difference in enzymes between the different juicers. One would be like 100%, one would be like 60%, and falling through there, but it wasn't that much variation generally.
Well, that's pretty neat.
I think that was one of
one of your takeaways. Any last words to share before? Any last words to share before we
we're good.
sign off?
If you're a new juicer, grab a Champion juicer and juice. Don't worry so much about which one to use; just use it.
Yeah, that's the important part. Is really just to get it out there and use the juicer.
And find one that works well for your routine, and do it.
Yeah. We had another question pop in here. Do you need to peel your carrots or just washing them? Is that satisfactory?
You can just peel them, or you can wash them. Just try it both ways to see which one you like the best.
Yeah. From personal experience, I feel that peeling is sweeter juice. So I noticed that the juice seems sweeter when I peeled it. So that's the biggest difference that I've noticed.
I think it's cleaner juice when you peel them.
Yep, I would agree with that too. Well, Dr. Donaldson, it's been great having you with us this evening. We sure appreciate all your effort that you put into this, and thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you everyone for being with us, and we'll be back next month with another presentation. Until then, we pray that you stay healthy. God bless.
God bless you all.